Well, it's finally here. It's definitely going to be an interesting time discussing this one. The game that some people touted as the next big series to rival Kingdom Hearts. Some also claiming it to be the next spiritual successor to The World Ends With You. Since it seems like we won't be getting another one anytime soon, the game that in many people's eyes failed the mark, failed to meet expectations quite spectacularly, and was panned quite negatively across the board from independent reviewers, YouTubers, and critics alike. So, I decided to step up to the plate and give this game an honest try and see if it was really as bad as its reputation preceded it. Was the criticism warranted, or is it perhaps an underrated hidden gem? Now, for clarity's sake, I did receive a review code thanks to NIS America and Furyu Corporation, so if you feel that that will at all taint my perception of this game, figured I would just be upfront with that fact, and that I'm going to try and be as brutally honest but fair as possible. So, let's dive right in to the tragically beautiful world of Reynatis. Just gonna get this one out of the way first. The graphics. I see quite a lot of people whose big complaint about this game was that it looked very PS2 era in terms of graphics. And I gotta say, what are you looking at? Like, yeah, I agree. The graphics might not look the best in terms of the character models specifically. They do look very stiff and emotionless at times for a good chunk of the game. But in terms of the graphics, I mean, look at this. Look at Shibuya. This place is beautiful. The neon lights everywhere, the cityscape, the flashiness of the moves, how smooth everything feels. If anything, I would say this is more in line with an above average PS3 game, or a very low end PS4 game. But yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. The graphics are not the nicest thing to look at, but they're also not the worst. And that's going to kind of be, there's gonna be a theme going forward. Now, there is one thing that I do have to praise. The character models, although they might not look the best graphically, the character designs themselves are really good. Maureen looking like he jumped straight out of Versus 13. Moa with her cute rebellion bunny hoodie that perfectly matches her personality. And even Nishijima, still donning the MEA attire, but altering it just enough to make you take a second look. Now, I will say, I do wish for the MEA squad, Nishijima, Dogo, and Ukai, that later on they got a casual fit that they wore in the story, instead of just their MEA outfit the entire time. There were a couple of scenes where it felt kinda out of place, but where the character models really shine, literally, is when you activate your liberated form, which, when your magic meter has filled up to a certain degree, you can jump into this form. Normally when you're walking around town, you are in your suppressed state as a wizard, not wanting to draw the attention of the people around you, whether they be the citizens, the MEA, the guild, or the members of the damned, who either outright despise wizards or seek them out for more unscrupulous reasons. But there are times where you have to liberate yourself, show who you really are. And something that I think really helps accentuate how cool these forms look are the character portraits. But this is something where I do feel it is lacking. I think people would have been a lot more accepting of this game's graphical style. The mix between pseudo-realism and anime-style graphics, it would have really helped if the character portraits had more expressions to them instead of just the one static expression that you see throughout the entire playthrough. I think if the expressions were more in line with, say, Persona 5, where in that game, the characters expressed themselves through their 3D models to an extent, but they were mostly emotive through the character portraits, the soul that it had, the insanely wide variety of emotions that the character portraits had, and of course the top tier voice acting. But I definitely think that is a net negative for this game, the lack of character portraits. As far as the OST goes, I have zero complaints. The music in this game is phenomenal. It's amazing. The goddess of music herself, Yoko Shimomura, once again, knocking it out of the park. And home run! Indeed, a home run. But, oh boy, this is probably going to get me some flack from people. I don't have entirely 100% positive things to say about it. The music, despite it being incredible, I do have some issues with. Not necessarily the compositions themselves, but even in the music department, that it still felt like there was something lacking. To me, video game music is important. It's an important piece of the puzzle that connects everything together. It's the fabric that binds the entirety of the experience and helps create memories. How many times have you listened to a piece of music and you've immediately thought of a specific character or a specific moment in that game that that piece of music reminds you of, that was imprinted on you because of the experience that the music helped define? I can point to a couple pieces of music in this game and go, yeah, the church theme, that definitely reminds me of Mr. Kujirai, or the music that plays when you're in the guild's main hideout. It has that air of mystery to it, while being slightly unnerving, and that ticking of the clock, that rhythmic pattern, symbolizing the stagnant force that the guild has become over the years. But there isn't a single piece of music that I can point to and go, yeah, this is Maureen's theme, or this is Moa's theme, or this piece of music reminds me specifically of this boss fight, or this emotional moment that happened at the end of the game, or in the climax of the game. There isn't anything like that connecting anything together. I don't want to say it feels like an afterthought, because the music does fit the game, it fits the game quite well, but there's nothing intrinsically tying it to anything thematically in the game that would make it truly memorable. The music of Kingdom Hearts is so legendary because of all the feelings that it gives you through the messaging of the game, through who Sora is as a character, all the friends that he meets along the way, all the different worlds that you explore, and the people that you meet through them, and the bonds that you forge. That's why the music is so legendary in that series. The same thing can extend to The World Ends With You, but unfortunately for this game, that's just not the case. And again, I'm not putting any of the blame on Yoko Shimomura herself. She was probably, she was given a task, here, make some music, okay, it's good, thanks, here's your paycheck, and she went on her way. That's totally fine. But I do wish, at the very least, that they had given characters a theme or two, Because even though it's in the background, music is a very impactful force in video games. And whether you realize it or not, really does enhance the overall experience to potentially legendary status. This next one seems to be a major point of contention for quite a lot of people out there, and that's the gameplay. Now, I've seen people say that for an action game, when it's go time, it needs to be 100% gas and no brakes. And that because of how this game handles its combat, the weaving in and out between your suppressed and liberated state detracts from the flow of the game, and can make some people feel like it slows to a crawl. And while I kinda get where they're coming from, I actually really appreciate what this game does in terms of the gameplay, because it isn't just your typical standard action hack and slash gameplay. There's a bit of thinking involved. And to be honest, I think those complaints are really only an issue in the early game. Once I hit the mid game, unless I was fighting a boss, I really never ran out of mana. Punching, 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 keep going, keep punching, just keep punching. He can't do anything. Look, he's literally can't do anything. Oh my. Let's go. Wow. Wow. We just stun-locked him forever with Dogo's punching. Alright, good job, team. If I was about to run out, I would just swap to another party member and continue attacking. Or when the situation needed it, like say an enemy had a shield, and the only way to get rid of the shield so you can defeat the enemy is to dodge an attack while in your suppressed state, which activates a sort of counter-attack, allowing you to steal their mana and replenish your own. But I'm somebody that I felt really getting intimate with the song and dance of learning when to swap back to your normal form, let's say right when an enemy is about to attack, so that you can dodge that attack, recover some mana, and then go back into your liberated form and continue the onslaught, was really fun and added an extra layer of strategy to the gameplay that I personally really enjoyed. And all the different wizard that you can find out in the wild also allowed a lot of variety in terms of how you chose to create your characters, and have them really gave you all these extra different avenues and playstyles that you could test to your heart's content. Are those pesky flying enemies getting on your nerves, and you really only like playing as physical characters? Well, you can just put magical abilities as skills, and then when those enemies show up, you just unleash your magic skills, and you're good to go. Tired of your favorite character getting KO'd in the middle of a fight? Well, you can have one of your characters set up as a support unit, with skills like gravity that pulls enemies in from a long range, and a healing ability that heals the whole party, allowing you to swap back to your other character and continue the fight. Now, adjacent to gameplay, something that you're going to be doing a lot is exploring dungeons. Not just in Shibuya, but in these otherworldly locations, promptly called Another. You enter this other space through these fog doors that then take you into a dungeon where you run through, fight waves of enemies, find hidden items lying around, and occasionally fight bosses. You'll be visiting these locations very often throughout the story and the game in general, and I will say they do get very, very repetitive, not just in terms of structure, but in terms of how they look as well. Once you've gone through one of these, you've essentially gone through them all. And I know Furyu didn't make this game, but it did give me flashbacks to Caligula Effect, and those dungeons were atrocious. The only saving grace for these ones, for me, in terms of Reynatis, is not only the fact that the music in them was top tier, but they were really, really short. And if you wanted to, you could just run all the way to the end. You don't even have to fight any of the enemies on the way over, except at very specific gated parts, which take at most like 30 seconds to a minute max to defeat the enemies in that area. I do also wish that the game had a proper minimap that you could pull up and see the entire area you're exploring, so you could get a proper read on things, and if you missed any paths or potentially any items or secret reports that may have been hidden around. I guess now's the time to talk about the big one, the story, and by extension the characters too. This is where I honestly feel the most conflicted. I can look at this game and from an objective standpoint go, yeah, the dungeons are kinda meh. Yeah, the character models don't look the best. Yeah, but I actually do enjoy the gameplay. But the story and the character writing is something that when people say they don't like this game, or that they felt it didn't meet their expectations, I understand it. I get it. Even though I'm someone that I went into this game with very little expectations, I wasn't somebody that knew this game was attempting to emulate Kingdom Hearts or The World Ends With You. I mean, it's kind of obvious by just taking a quick look at the protagonist and the gameplay, how it works, basically. So I didn't have any expectations on the Kingdom Hearts side. Now, on the World Ends With You side, that's actually what got me interested in this game in the first place, was seeing that collab trailer. As somebody that really enjoys the characters and the writing and the stories of those games, I can see how that would rub off onto this game, and the expectations would be pretty high, since those games are, in my book, pretty legendary for various reasons. And oftentimes, at least in terms of The World Ends With You, delve into some very personal topics. Some topics that, well, you didn't really find too much back in those days. And it did so in a way that it felt real, it felt genuine. It felt explored properly. And all the conclusions that you got felt earned, felt natural. From the story and the character perspective, this game attempts to do what those games do, but at a much inferior level. The story quality, while some aspects of it I did really enjoy, does miss the mark in a lot of cases. One non-major spoilery thing is the guild. They're set up as this big, huge faction that you go up against. Think of, Organization 13, or the Reapers from The World Ends With You. However, they're given barely any screen time and barely any build-up, so by the time you meet them face to face, there's really only one or two that stick out to you and that you remember by the end of your journey. And not even necessarily because they're well written, just because they have the most aura of all the members. They're the most intimidating. They have the most fearful presence. They actually feel like important characters that have quite a formidable legacy behind them, driving them forward, pushing them towards their goal. And that is something that, in the end, you could argue, yes, spending more time with them and knowing more about them was really not the point. The point was merely to have them as obstacles for the main character to overcome. But I really just do feel like they could have had a little bit more. It would have helped them stand out more and feel less generic, feel less like throwaway villains. And that's also another problem in the story. It moves so fast at times, but yet it also can feel like nothing is really happening at the same time. There is a way to find fog, Leave it to the Shibuya Owl. And I feel like that's the end of the chapter. Yep, these chapter ends are very abrupt. Oh, we're back to this again. Like, yeah, you're defeating these heads of this guild, and yeah, you're progressing through the story, and things are happening to the main character and to your other party members, but it doesn't give those moments enough time to cook for you to not just process them, but to really care about them. Even the characters themselves fall into this trap, where they are pretty one note, and then you reach a certain part of the story, and then they suddenly become the focus for a little bit, and then once their thing is done, that's it. They're benched once again, and they don't really do anything else in regards to the main story. Even Nishijima, who I would argue is the secondary protagonist of the game, the deuteragonist, is that the term, I believe? She has some pretty good focus early on, and is somewhat interesting and compelling, especially after learning her reasons for joining the MEA and why she continues to fight. But then once you reached that halfway point, the focus shifted away from her and Maureen into focusing solely on Maureen. And then they just sped through his character development into the end game, and it just felt kinda, it was this constant feeling of whiplash in the story. Like, you would get settled in, and you're like, alright, we're gonna go on this journey with this kid. Oh, and then the focus would shift hard to somebody else, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this now, and then it would shift again to another direction. I definitely feel like this game would have actually benefited if it were like 10-15 hours longer. I normally don't say that in regards to games. I usually sometimes wish games were a little shorter, but I think this game needed more time. More time to develop these characters, more time to become engrossed in the story. Because when I read all those secret reports, that stuff, that interesting stuff, the stuff that hooked me, that drugged me along, was already there. I feel like if they took that stuff and they sprinkled it throughout the main story instead of having it be this side thing that most people probably won't even bother to seek out, it would have made it more compelling. Would it have saved the game for most people? That's something I'm not sure of. But when I got to the end of the game and I saw those last 2-3 hours, the story really ramped up, and the things that happened were really, really good. And the post-game DLC, which are free updates by the way, delving more into characters' pasts and even having a little post-game scene, which ended up just serving as sequel bait. Those scenes were also really good, and it ended with a boss fight that, in my opinion, perfectly emulated Kingdom Hearts, but with this game's own unique style. And that was probably the most fun I had in the game, was during those final 3-4 hours. I think if they had removed some of the side quests, trimmed some of the fluff, some of the fat, and focused more on the actual story, it would have resonated a lot more with people. Now, do the themes hit as hard as The World Ends With You? No. Again, it's... This game suffers from the problem of wanting to do too many things at once. It wants to be a jack of all trades, master of none, but it almost feels like it doesn't understand why the things that work for Kingdom Hearts and The World Ends With You worked for those games. Because a lot of the themes in regards to wanting to chase your dreams, pushing away everyone to attain them, dealing with loneliness, dealing with loss, dealing with pain, learning to love others, learning to love yourself, a lot of these ideas, a lot of these concepts are great, and if explored properly, would have really helped endear people to these characters, to this world, to this game. But again, it flies through these things so quickly that by the time you're just getting used to what they're telling you, it moves on to the next thing, and the character's already gotten over what they're dealing with, or the entire cast has moved on to something different. So when people say they don't like this game, or that they dropped the game, or that it's boring, or that it failed to live up to expectations, I get it. I really do. But there's something about this game that despite all of its flaws, despite everything that I have said, there's something about it that I enjoy this game quite a bit. I'm not going to say I love it, I'm not going to say I really like it, but it's almost a diamond in the rough. You can see the potential, you can feel the potential in various scenes throughout the story, through various boss fights in the game. You can see what it wants to be with certain developments that the characters go through and that it tries to capture. And honestly, that makes me really, really hope that this game does get a sequel, because I feel that if the team can take the feedback that they got from this game and use it to make the next game 3 times better, make Maureen more of an actual character throughout the next game, give us more of a reason to care about this world and the characters involved, because again, the lore of this world is really cool. The idea of people dying and then through sheer force of will coming back to life due to the power of this essentially Grim Reaper, and giving them these wizard powers, these magical powers that allow them to do things that no normal person can, but on the same token, having a society that despises those same wizards and and getting to see the conflicts and the turmoil that all of them deal with due to that burden being placed upon them, while they continue to try and carve out a meaning to their life or to succeed in the goals that they otherwise would have left behind, is really, really, really fascinating and really interesting. And here's the big one. Would I recommend you to check this game out? I know there's a lot of really big releases, not just in terms of that have come out recently, but also on the horizon. And $60 is kind of a big ask for a game like this. I would definitely say it is absolutely worth picking up at around $30. In my opinion, this is a great palate cleanser type of game. It's not too long, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and what it offers is really interesting and unique enough that I feel it's at least worth checking out, if this is something that you're interested in. At the end of the day, I have a lot of mixed feelings towards this game, a lot of very complicated feelings, but overall I do think there was enough positives that it outweighed the negatives in the end. And seeing the journey through to its finish line, it was a journey that I'm very glad I chose to embark on at the end of the day, because it really did offer a lot to think about. Not every game can be a 10 out of 10 peak cinema masterpiece. Just because a game is kinda mid doesn't automatically make it bad, or somehow less deserving of being played over others. And despite being a mid-tier game, I enjoyed my time with this game, and I derived personal enjoyment and satisfaction from it. And that's definitely something that makes it worthwhile in the end, at least in my eyes. I definitely think this would be, at the very least, an amusing time killer for those who are, patiently waiting for the next Kingdom Hearts title, or the next Twooey title, which, who knows when that'll be. The Twooey collab in this game, by the way, was pretty fun. It was more so just a bunch of references here and there, and a couple fun cameos. Nothing too serious, but I enjoyed it as a Twooey mega fan myself. It was fun. Just don't expect the world, And, well, after quite a long time, I finally beat this game, and I finally got all my thoughts out there. I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say about this game. Did you play it? Were you interested in this game? And maybe the reviews turned you off, turned you away. Has my review perhaps sparked a little bit more interest in this game for you? Feel free to let me know anything that you want down below in the comments. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and a very special thank you to all current channel members and supporters over on Patreon. It's because of you guys that I can do things like this. And if you would like to join the community and support me going forward, links will be in the description. You get early access up to a week in advance, and all kinds of other things. And so, here marks the end of my journey with Reynatis. It was filled with fun, laughter, questionable moments, and a decent amount of cringe. But it was an adventure that in the end, I was glad to be a part of it. Thank you all for joining me. Peace out, and stay spicy.
And that was the end of the line.